YouTube, good evening. HeirofCarthage here. What the crap's going on there? I combined both intros. Does that make people happy? Probably not, because the people who hate my original intro are probably not going to like that. Hey, just wanted to say, of course, thanks to MSI because they've sponsored this motherboard and my build before we start off. And then also there is a subscribe button that looks like my logo down in the right-hand corner of the video. If you like what you see, please feel free to subscribe. Helps me out a lot. So let's jump into a battle. I'm running under the name Titanius Anglesmith. Does anybody recognize that? If you do, props to you. So I'm going to be playing as the Empire. Someone requested this. So I was like, you know, I can play as the Empire. I haven't played as them in a while. So I've got 6 spearmen, which seem to be standard with the Empire. Although great swords really are good units. I just don't build a lot of armies around the great swords. I suppose I could. I wanted to bring handgunners, so I've got a couple of those. I'm playing against the Dwarfs, and so handgunners can be pretty handy unit if you can keep them alive. I've got the Empire Captain on a Griffin, and of course with the spammy healing potions, but he's the only hero I brought with healing potions, but still, it's going to make him pretty tough. And then I wanted to make things interesting, so over here I've got 2 Empire Knights, and then also... yeah, there it is. I got a steam tank. I still find it interesting that the Empire is the one with the steam tank, not the Dwarves. It really seems like dwarf technology. But whatever. I've got 2 more Empire Knights under the center, and then a Bright Wizard. I've already taken some shots at these 3 gyrocopter units. So handgunners are actually really good at killing gyrocopters. So definitely a handy unit to have. And if we take a look at the Dwarf army, there's a pretty fair number of Longbeards in the front line. There's some Thunderers, or no, sorry, these are Quarrelers here in the second line. There's 2 Quarrelers, 1 Hammerer, several Dwarf Warriors in the back line for support. There's a Runesmith, which is a great choice for the Dwarves right now. He can buff the stats of the Dwarves significantly, especially a unit like Longbeards, and he can make them pretty tough if used right. But he's only brought 1 of the extra buffs with this Runesmith. I can't see exactly which one it is because I can't get to it there. He's got Ungrim Iron Fist here, and Ungrim, I don't know if he's rocking the Axe of Dargo or not, because I haven't really learned my little emblems yet. So my opponent strayed way too close with his gyrocopters, thinking he could put some shots into my Empire Knights, so I used the Net of Amantok with my Bright Wizard, and I've got his gyrocopters stuck, and I'm able to attack them and cause some pretty massive damage. So I was hoping that this would kind of get my opponent to stray away with his gyrocopters and keep them away from my Empire Knights, which would be fairly vulnerable to their fire. So my Griffin seems like absurdly covered in blood, considering that he was just fighting a gyrocopter. So yeah. Anyway, you can kind of see the overall battlefield. So the Dwarves will have a ranged advantage in the sense that they have Quarrelers over my handgunners, but my cannon is going to be free to sit back on this hill and lob shots over here into the Dwarf infantry. So the steam tank's cannon can do some significant damage. There was no need for me to be this close to the Dwarves, so I'm going to pull back. His only real mobility here is the gyrocopters. I had dropped a blood roar on them right before they ran off, hoping to rout some of them. So we'll save that again for later. And again, you can see me placing my Bright Wizard in front of the gyrocopters. My opponent pushes the gyrocopters again. And this is definitely not a good move for him. I even accidentally misclicked the Net of Amantok, where I didn't actually get it on his unit, but he was still within the radius. So I was able to attack him, and I'm going to bring my my Griffin and my Light Wizard in here and get free shots on his gyrocopters while they are stuck in the nets. So Net of Amantok is actually an extremely useful spell. It seems to me to be pretty underused in most of the online matches because people tend to just go for a little bit spammier stuff, but Net of Amantok can definitely give you some very nice strategic advantages. So you can see that I was able to deal with his gyrocopters with very little damage in return because of the Net of Amantok. The Dwarves definitely the underdog in this fight. They've got their work cut out for them. But they do outclass my infantry. My cavalry is going to be a problem. They need to deal with my cavalry. But in terms of the infantry fight, they should be able to beat me out. A real big problem for the Dwarves, though, is the steam tank. None of their units here are really very capable of dealing with the steam tank. The Hammerers cause anti-armor armor-piercing damage, but even they are not real well lined up to be fighting a steam tank. I just took several shots from the brimstone guns. It does damage the steam tank, but my steam tank will stay safe. I decided to pull my handgunners forward and try and trade a little bit of fire with the Quarrelers, but this is just definitely a bad idea. And he starts moving his infantry forward, so rather than sacrifice my handgunners too early, I notice what I'm doing. It's a little bit late, but I notice it, and I'm like, alright, I'm out of here. So I'm going to pull my my handgunners way back behind my lines, keep them safe, because the Dwarves' only mobility really is the gyrocopters, and those gyrocopters are getting chewed up pretty bad my opponent falling for yet another net of Amantok here definitely should have kept a pretty stout distance in between himself and my light wizard there. His gyrocopters have paid mightily here without getting any payback. So I've got the knights ready now. Of course, the dwarfs have the uphill, and their long beards have charged into my spearmen here. They're going to do very, very well versus my spearmen, no doubt about it. There's a crashed gyrocopter right there. That's pretty sweet. So yeah, only a couple of dwarf units engaged so far, and I'm going to go ahead and start engaging the dwarfs. I have a Empire Knight that's going to run a rear charge on his hammerers. Hammerers do not have a charge bonus, so I get a really nice charge, and I should have disengaged immediately. I did not. But over here, my Empire Knights also get a very nice charge. His gyrocopters have been driven way back, and my steam tank is kind of waiting around. I cast this vortex spell here. Doesn't appear to do a ton of damage. It gets to walk through some of the dwarf units though here, so it's definitely worth it in the sense of it disrupts his formation, did a little bit of damage. If we take a look at the light wizard, let's see, it actually got quite a few kills. That was not bad at all. It rolled right through these quarrelers and I think did some nice damage. His quarrelers I think had an attack, I don't know where their attack order was, but they ran into my line as well. And I've got a fire order here on Ungrim because he's a little bit exposed, like he punched through my line. Gonna attack him with my Empire Captain. Over here I get a little bit bogged down in combat with my Empire Knights, but I figured if I support it with my steam tank, I should be able to knock the dwarves out and get my knights free. But back here I just kind of ran away from his hammerers with my Empire Knights, and I'm gonna be ready for another rear charge. Let's get a insert camera view. Let's hopefully get up towards the front of the formation. Here we go. So cinematic camera into the back of the dwarf formation with the Empire Knights. Obviously going to be pretty devastating there. But dwarf units are quite resilient, and my opponent throws in these dwarf warriors. They got to stand your ground, so they have extra melee defense. Then the hammerers are rolling in right behind them, so my Empire Knights there are in dire straits. And I did a quick rear charge with my light wizard, but I didn't see this dwarf unit down here. My light wizard is now stuck in combat. He can't get out of combat. I'm trying desperately, but he just can't get out. Gyrocopters did come back, and they started getting some damage done on a few of my Empire Knights while I was kept busy elsewhere. My Empire Knights, though, doing a good job over here on this flank. There's still some quarrelers. I've got them engaged temporarily with some spearmen, so that's going well for me. And like I said, my handgunners are back in the back, able to get ready to run away if they need to. I've done considerable damage to Ungrim Iron Fist, though he's not dead yet. I used a Shim's Burning Gaze there to try and punch a hole for my Light Wizard to escape. It didn't work, and he starts routing, so hopefully he'll get away alive. But yeah, I was hoping the Shim's Burning Gauge might punch a hole for him to run through, but it didn't work out quite like I had envisioned. Nothing ever does, I suppose. The steam tank is killing a huge number of dwarves, and there is honestly nothing they can do about it. They just do not have the right units for this. Thunderers would help if they could keep their distance and get shots off. An organ gun can do well if it could keep its distance. But I'm going to be able to chase off his gyrocopters here, so I'm going to get them out of the way. Only a couple are left behind. So again, I'm able to retreat. My Empire Knights, though, taking a lot of damage, and the dwarf army is punching through my center, kind of as I expected. And my slow reactions with my Empire Knights, I mean, I've gotten decent kills, but like this one, though, all these are decent kills, but not great. My Empire Captain's a little bit damaged. I do have a healing potion. I'm trying not to spam it, so I'm just kind of hanging on to it. Back here, I'm going to play the kiting game with the dwarf infantry. My skirmishers are none too fast because they're tired, but the dwarf infantry is also going to be none too fast. So my handgunners are kind of catching some of these dwarf infantry units in a vice back here in the woods. You can see here the dwarf runesmith is attempting to buff up the men over here. The steam tank definitely has them outclassed. My Empire general is way off on the edge of the map, getting rid of gyrocopters, which is actually pretty important at this point. Empire Knights trying to retreat from a charge there. They've done a lot of damage, but there's hammers and everything still in that fight. It's pretty rough. I wanted to go after Ungrim Iron Fist with my steam tank. Let's see whether or not we found him. I don't see his little mohawk self over here. So, actually, did I get him? Oh, no, here's Ungrim. So my steam tank catches up with Ungrim. It's going to play a little bit of dwarf bowling. Gonna, help him steam up his hair a little bit there too. Ungrim doesn't get too badly staggered by the steam tank, but he is getting beat up on pretty badly. He does have armor-piercing damage, and he's done more damage to it than anybody else. Ungrim kicks the bucket. Dwarves aren't going to rout just because of the death of Ungrim, but it's going to help me get some of their units off the battlefield. So you can't expect to kill a Dwarf Lord and necessarily just see their whole army rout. That's not the way the Dwarfs play the game. Again, back here, just chasing off gyrocopters. I hate to use my Empire General just for this, but it is very important. Look at that, man. He can fly right through trees. This guy's got like some kind of phased matter device within himself. So yeah, he's going to just chase these guys all the way to the red line and off the battlefield. I'm using Blood Roar to help get these guys off the field too because their morale is already low. So the gyrocopters are off the battlefield, and I'm able to turn my my captain around. So all that's left for the dwarves here is a hammer unit, which is pretty good. A runesmith is in good shape. He's helping hold together these other troops. But at this point, my handgunners are a very serious problem for the dwarf player. They're going to be able to fire, and there's nothing the dwarf can use to catch them. He does have quarrelers, and the quarrelers do have a significant range, but there's not many of them left, and I have a couple of regrouped cavalry units. He's also got a steam tank that is in pretty darn good shape. I'm going to give a fire order on the hammers here in a moment. Looks like I'm still aimed at something else, but I think I go ahead and take aim at the hammers. Yep, so I'm going to focus my fire in on the most important dwarf unit left. And then I'm going to actually send my steam tank over that direction too. Let's follow the steam tank. So into combat, here comes the steam tank into the hammers. I'm going to plow on through them. So, I mean, the steam tank will do extreme damage to infantry units. I mean, unless they are specifically suited. You can see the hammers already wavering. And they are a good infantry unit, but I mean, it's just, as you can see, there's not much they can do against this big war machine. I'll tell you what can work good against it is cavalry with an anti-large bonus. Obviously something the dwarfs don't have, but I accidentally clicked out of the game. Yeah, cavalry with an anti-large bonus is definitely dangerous for the steam tank. But again, you can use stuff like the light wizard and his net of Amantok. I've actually gotten to where I kind of like the vortex spell on the light wizard. It's actually pretty decent if you get it into softer targets. So anyway, this is going to be a victory for me. I mean, not entirely unexpected when it's Empire versus Dwarves. My opponent did put up a good fight. He killed all my infantry for the most part, but you can see where the Dwarves, like, he definitely made some mistakes. He shouldn't have pushed his gyrocopters into my my light wizard so early. I mean, you can kind of mouse over the light wizard and you'd be able to see whether or not he has net of Amantok. And gyrocopters are very fragile in melee. I like his army pick. In general, I don't have any huge problems with his army pick. He's got a couple of heroes supporting some good longbeards. Hammers there for getting extra damage done. These guys can actually be pretty good versus cavalry, and a fair number of their kills here were against cavalry. The hammers just deal massive damage. Now, I'm not saying it's good for him to be taking cavalry charges, but if they get into a fight with him, they'll do some pretty serious damage. The quarrelers with great weapons, I think, is a little bit questionable. Just stick with the regular quarrelers. They have a shield, and they're more resistant to missiles. The great weapons are a little bit better in melee, but, I mean, honestly, you really don't want your quarrelers in melee if they can avoid it. I like the dwarf warrior support. They're cheap. You can throw them in around longbeards, and the longbeards will encourage the dwarf warriors. It's definitely a big help. Nothing wrong with picking gyrocopters, but against the Empire, you have to realize the Empire does have tools for dealing with gyrocopters. They have access to numerous flying units. They have access to good spells, handgunners, crossbows, all kinds of stuff that can help counter a gyrocopter. So I'm not saying I disagree with the pick of the gyrocopter. You just have to be careful with it. A steam tank against the dwarfs is a pretty tough thing for the dwarfs to counter unless they're planning for it. So it is something to be aware of. The Empire can pick that steam tank against you. Just bring crappy infantry, and as you can see, the steam tank is going to level out a lot of dwarfs, including their leader. In this case, it got a double chevron. Some of my spears started with a chevron, so no, they didn't do that particularly good. And the Empire Knights, you know, decent performance from 3 of them. This one, not so much. And the general of the Empire, of course, chased off the gyrocopters for the most part, which ends up being worth it for him. So I don't know. Hope you all enjoyed this one. I mean, like I said, obviously the dwarfs definitely the underdog. The Empire just has a lot more tools. The dwarfs are better in this patch. They really are better. They have more options, but definitely going to still be an underdog to a faction like the Empire or the Greenskins, who can field very diverse armies and hit you with strategies that for the dwarfs are tougher to counter. Countering cavalry is not super easy with the dwarves. They just don't have any anti-large units other than slayers, and slayers cost a fortune. and they themselves are actually pretty vulnerable to cavalry charges and also to missiles. So, I mean, and then you got to deal with flying units. I mean, like I said, the dwarves definitely have their work cut out for them in multiplayer. How would you try and defend against the Empire with dwarves? Have you found any builds that you like? Or would you just always pick the Empire and not take the dwarves? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hope you enjoyed it. HeirofCarthage signing out for now.